So last time we were here, we were able to generate a section that let you sign out. Make sure you have the console open. So we can now sign up, sign in, and sign out. It would be nice that when we sign in, we not only see the information here, but that we could go to like a profile page that would actually pull the information from the database. So that is what we're going to do. So oddly enough, we're going to start with sign out, and I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to rename it profile. So this is our sign out code. That's what it is. Clearly we're not going to be signing out anymore. This is now going to be called the profile page. We'll get rid of the signing out information. And I'm just going to create another div right under here. And it's going to have an ID equal to profile, and it's just going to be empty at the moment. So what's going to happen is after you sign in, you're going to come to this page, and what it's going to do is it's going to show us our code, which we put in temp, that actually got our user information. So on this page that we now had called temp, we actually accessed our API. So I'm literally just going to grab this async function that we had last time. And I'm going to go back to the profile page, and actually I'm not going to do that right now. Before I do that, I'm going to go to the sign-in page. Sign-in page. And we need this user authentication code. So if we look at our profile one, we're connecting to onload, we're connecting and checking that if we're an actual valid Cognito user. If we are, then we're sending to the console that we're a valid one, and then we sign out. So clearly in the profile, we don't want to sign out anymore. What we want to do, and this is why I'm going to the sign-in page, is we want this chunk of code, which gives us the user attributes and got us back the email address. So I'm going to take this function from sign in and go to profile and drop it right here after we have a valid session. I'm going to drop it right in here. Okay, so once we know we have a valid session, we take that Cognito user and we get its attributes, and clearly we don't want to be showing it here anymore. What we want to is not the login, but this profile div. We want to take that profile div and we want to show the information to the user. Actually, we're just going to pause there for a second. Okay, so we're just going to comment that out. So in results right here, we now have, actually I'm going to change this result to this. Okay, so this is the user email address. So now we're going to go back to our temp code, and we have this function, which took the user email address and got us back the information we were looking for. So we're going to drop that into our profile, right near the top. Make sure you indent nicely. Okay, so this is the element that we want to be the profile. So in here, we want to take the profile information and we're going to add the information we get back from the API. Now at the moment, it's just going to blindly take John Smith's. So we don't want to take John Smith's. What we want to take is a variable called email address and have that passed into this function so that whatever email address is passed into the function, it will now display that. So this function can now be called instead of this. And remember, this is the email address. So just to go over, on our web page, it'll say profile, and we'll have an empty div that will be populated. And once again, we'll still have the going back to the index page. We have our async function that we created a little while ago that goes to our API and now has a variable passed into it that is the email address, and it will go and fetch that data and then take the profile div and just blindly shove that JSON file in there, which is okay for now. And the rest of our code was the standard Cognito one that on load happens, checks if it's a user. If not, it will just exit and say you've already signed out. If it is a valid Cognito user, then we still log that it's a valid session. We can comment that out, I guess. And then we go and get the attribute, which is the email address, and we pass the email address to our API function. So let's save this and we'll go back to index. Actually, I'm going to go back to sign in. Copy this, go back to sign in. And just before here, I'm just going to have a link to the profile page. Now, later on we will fix this, but right now we'll just leave it as this. So on the sign in page, you will sign in, and then once you've signed in, you can click this link, and since you have signed in, it will show you the information properly. So we're going to go back to index and reload that. We're going to go to sign in, put in our information. Now, just before I sign in, I'm going to go back to the DynamoDB table. Remember that in this table, we are going to have a valid user. Actually, I'm also going to go back to Cognito. Let's go to Cognito first. So in Cognito, you will remember that we have our pool and we have a user group, and the current user is this. Now, that's our Cognito login. In our database, we also need to have that exact same user. You'll notice that I've updated and I have that exact same user. Make sure that you have an entry in your database that is the exact same email address as the email address that's logged in. Later on, we're going to automate that process, but for now, you have to do it manually. So I'm going to sign in, and my sign in went properly. There's my credentials. Now I'm going to click on profile, and you'll notice there it is, automatically showed up. So now we have a way of logging into a website and then retrieving information from our database and bringing it all the way back. One thing to note, this is actually an incredibly insecure and bad way of doing it, because somebody can look at our profile page. Actually, going to go back to the profile page. They can look at it. You just go view source code, and they can see this line right here. And then they can grab that URL and drop it in any web browser and just replace this with any email address that they want to get access to it. So if I come here and go to Jane Smith, for example, and drop in Jane Smith there and press enter, her information comes back. So I know this is highly insecure. I know there are better ways to go about doing it. We might get there in the end, we might not, but we're already at step 12, so this takes a long time. So for now, we're just going to leave it the way it is. I know it's insecure. In a real website, you would never, ever do this, and there is ways around it. We might or might not get there eventually. So the next step is, this is really nice, but we should really probably put it in a table somehow so that it looks nice, and we need to make this look a little better, and we're going to make that happen with CSS. Since we've done HTML and JavaScript, we should do CSS and make our website look a little prettier, and we will do that next time.